Hi, I'm Chuck Betters, and one of our listeners writes a very interesting question, and I hope it proves to be helpful for him, and maybe if you're struggling with the same kinds of things that he is struggling with, it'll be helpful for you. We here at MARKINC Ministries try to answer all of the questions that are submitted to us on the basis of what do the scriptures have to say. My opinion and the opinions of others really don't matter, and hopefully you will find that if this question stirs something in you, if my answer stirs something in you, that you'll go and seek further help. You'll go to somebody and hopefully that's qualified to address these questions from a biblical point of view that can help you get some solutions to the problem. He writes this. He says, I recently lost my job. I was very successful, seemed to be on top of my game, and now I am in financial ruin. I've lost everything, my job, my house, and now my wife is leaving me too. How can I trust God when everything is being taken away, no matter how much I pray? Well, as I address this question, there's a couple of thoughts that I have, and I want to read something, first of all, from the scriptures from Romans chapter 8. We read this. It says, likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And he who searches hearts knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. You'll notice the condition that Paul places on this. All things work together for good, yes, but for those who love the Lord. And so the first priority in our lives needs to be, what is God's perspective on this? That's what wisdom is. When you read in the Proverbs, when Solomon talks so much about wisdom this and wisdom that, and he even goes as far as to personify wisdom. He calls wisdom sometimes he sometimes calls it she, and he personifies wisdom. Well, all of that is pointing to who Jesus Christ is. Jesus is the wisdom of God. And so if you want to know the mind of God, you need to know Christ. You need to know who he is and what he has come to accomplish for you. One of the great things that we often tend to do as believers or unbelievers is we blame God. Somehow or another, it's God's fault. I've prayed and God didn't answer my prayers. Well, maybe he did. Maybe he said no. Or maybe he is pointing to you and saying, hey, take a look inward. Look inside. Ask yourself why you're losing all of these things. Is it because of bad decisions that you've made? Is it because there is some character flaw in you? You search your own heart. You ask the Spirit of God, search me and try me, and see if there is any wicked way in me. Look inside of your own self to answer the question of, well, maybe these things are going wrong. Maybe these things are happening to me because of what I am doing. Maybe you're losing your wife because of what you're doing. Maybe you've lost your job because of what you're doing. I don't know, because I don't know who you are. But that's the first place to look, is go inside of yourself and say, Lord, search my heart. And if you don't know how to pray, this passage tells us that the Holy Spirit, if you're a Christian, dwells inside of you. He indwells your heart. And if you do not know how to pray, the Holy Spirit will pray for you. He will intercede for you. He'll go right through those, as Paul calls them, the moanings and the groanings of your soul, and he will take it right to the very throne of God. But then you have to be open to what God is trying to say right back to you. I don't know, maybe this little broadcast is going to be the speaking of the Spirit of God to your soul at this particular juncture in your life. I feel for you. I feel for your pain. I was raised in a home in which my father made very, very bad decisions. And those decisions cost our family a lot of pain. I love my dad. My dad is dead now, but I can tell you this, that my father made some very, very bad and prideful decisions that affected his whole family. It didn't affect just him. It affected us as kids. It affected his marriage. It affected my mother. And there was intense suffering that came as the result of some of the bad decisions that he made. So the first place to look is inside of yourself. Look in your own heart. Ask the Spirit of God. If you want to pray for something, pray that the Spirit of God would open up whatever chambers there are in your soul that are contributing to all of these losses that you're experiencing. Now, if you come up clean, if you come up with a clean heart at that point, and you have done everything you know how to do to please the Lord and to serve the Lord, then you have to accept suffering. And you have to accept the suffering as a part of the sufferings of Christ. When we search our hearts and we find that there's very little we have done wrong to cause the problems, then that suffering has been assigned to us in order to reflect the glory of God back to a lost world. Because bad things happen to Christians, bad things happen to non-Christians. To show the world the difference is how we respond. I hope this helps you.